All right, welcome everybody to the online lesson for today. My name is David and I am going to be running the lesson today. I'm a chess teacher and I have taken a couple of these lessons before, so you may have heard me on the line. Carl also runs these lessons, but I run chess lessons in schools and chess clubs and online and all over the country. So hopefully we have a good lesson today. The lesson that we're going to be working on today is probably one of the most famous chess strategies of all time. You may have heard of it, even if you don't know how to do it. It's called the four-move checkmate. There are some other names for the four-move checkmate as well. In the old days, it was called the scholar's mate, and we've got a picture of a scholar on the screen in front of us now. A scholar is somebody who studies books, and back in the old days, a scholar's mate was only able to be done by somebody who'd learnt it. It's not something that you can sort of just make up yourself or come up with out of the blue. People actually had to learn these things, and so it was called a scholar's mate because the people who were studying and reading about chess were the ones who were able to do the scholar's mate or the four-move checkmate. It can also be called a fool's mate. Okay, a fool's mate, because they would say that only a fool would fall for the four-move checkmate. I don't think that's really fair. I think that anybody can fall for the four-move checkmate, but you are a bit of a fool if you fall for it again and again and again and again. You do need to learn from what you do and any mistakes that you make. I would say it's probably the most common trick that gets used at school level. So if you go and play in an inter-school competition, you will probably end up looking like one of these kids on the screen here. The four-move checkmate is devastating when it happens to you. It's like, what? We've just started the game. It's only been going for 4 moves, and I've already lost. It's already game over. All right. It's easy to learn, but it is very devastating when it happens to you. And like I said, I think it's probably the most common trick that I've seen in inter-school competitions. Why is my next? There we go. I always say that with a four-move checkmate, get me once, shame on you. Get me twice, shame on me. This is something that my dad used to say to me when you get tricked by something. It's not nice to trick somebody, all right? So if you four-move checkmate somebody and they're brand new, they've never played chess very much before, it's a bit mean. It's a bit mean that you're using something that they don't know anything about, and you're using this sneaky four-move checkmate trick to win really quickly. So shame on you. But if they fall for it a second time, well, they deserve it. Okay, they haven't learned from it the first time. They deserve to get checkmated. So don't fall for the same trick again and again and again. Make sure that if you do get checkmated in 4 moves, you actually learn from it. All right, learn from it. What are you going to do differently next time? How's it going to work next time? So what we're going to do today is we're going to go through 2 things. First of all, we need to know how to do the 4-move checkmate. All right, that's obviously important. Secondly, we need to know if somebody is trying it on you and they're trying to get you in the 4-move checkmate, how are you going to stop it? Okay, so there's 2 things. Before we even start that, it's important to realize that the 4-move checkmate, even though it seems like 4 moves, is not a move. It's not a series of moves. A 4-move checkmate is a strategy. And there's a big difference between strategy and a move. All right? A move is like, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do the next move after that? Okay, we call those moves or tactics. Okay, the 4-move checkmate doesn't have to happen in 4 moves. The 4-move checkmate is just what the way that we describe the strategy. And a strategy is an idea. Okay, so that's really important to understand. A strategy is just an idea, and there are lots of different ways of executing your idea, right? And the way that you execute your idea can be different every time. And those executions are moves, right? 4-move checkmate strategy is two things. It's the queen on the weak spot, protected by something. right? Really simple. And we can see here the queen is on that square diagonal to the king, so that's called the weak spot. All right, there's nothing protecting that square for black apart from his king, and the bishop is protecting white's queen. All right, so here we have white's queen on the weak spot, protected by a bishop. There's checkmate, right? And that is a 4-move checkmate strategy. Now, of course, the 4-move checkmate strategy usually happens in 4 moves, and that's why it's called the 4-move checkmate. All right. So the 4 moves that we usually see happening are advancing the pawn in front of the king. That's move number 1. Getting the bishop out, number 2, making sure that the bishop's aiming for the weak spot. Getting the queen out, making sure the queen's aiming for the weak spot. That's number 3. And then number 4, the queen goes down, takes the pawn on the weak spot, protected by the bishop, and there's checkmate. Okay, so those are normally the 4 moves. All right, normally, not always, but they are normally the 4 moves. So we're going to now see those moves in action, because obviously 4-move checkmate, you have to rely on black doing some moves as well. Okay, so let's see what would happen if it was a real game. Okay, so if it was a real game, oops, sorry about that, guys. We're just technical difficulty there. It's given me a screen which I wasn't expecting. So we're going to have to zoom in here and just change it around. Okay, so let's have a look at this scenario here. I'll wait for that to update on your screen, and we're going to see the 4-move checkmate in action. Okay, so first move on a 4-move checkmate, we've already said that it was going to be moving that pawn 2 steps forwards. Okay, now we do that because we want to allow the bishop and the queen freedom to come off the back row, and eventually, hopefully, we're going to be able to take out black's pawn on the weak spot. And if we can get the queen to the weak spot, somehow the queen zooming down onto the weak spot, as long as it's protected by something, that's going to be our 4-move checkmate strategy. Okay, so that's what we're aiming for. Okay, let's go back. So we're going to advance our pawn forwards. We're controlling the middle of the board, which is a good idea anyway. We're getting our bishop and our queen out. Black's probably going to copy. That's like kind of a normal first move. So there we go. We've got the first moves done. White's bishop as planned. We've seen that from before. The bishop comes out, and when the bishop moves out, we make sure that the bishop is aiming for the weak spot. Okay, so there's a lot of different places that bishop could have gone. All right, the bishop could have gone to any of those yellow squares. All right, when a bishop moves out, it can go to any of those yellow squares. But of course, if we're trying for the 4-move checkmate strategy, we need the bishop to be there attacking the weak spot, because that's the piece that we want to use to protect the queen later on. Okay, so that's why we're aiming for that square. So we've just got the bishop out. Let's say, what does black do? Well, again, black might just copy. Black might do the same thing, move his bishop off the back row and do the same thing, just basically copy. I mean, that's quite normal for a beginner player. Both players sort of moving their bishops out, getting things in towards the middle of the board, and then the queen comes off the back row for the third move. All right, the queen is now aiming for the weak spot. We've got the weak spot there. It's protected by the bishop, so the next move is going to be checkmate. And a lot of times, black might not notice that. He might not notice that the weak spot is attacked. He might think, oh, gee, that queen's come out. All right, that's not a good spot for a queen to be in, all the way out there. Oh, maybe I'm going to go and attack the queen. And they move their knight out, and they use the knight to attack the queen, thinking, well, that's a great move. The knight can threaten the queen. Next move, the queen's going to have to retreat. And there's no point in White having moved his queen all the way into the attack and now just having to turn around and go back. But of course, if this bishop is here, the bishop is going to be protecting the weak spot. And so when the queen now sneaks in behind the knight, queen just zips in there, takes the pawn on the weak spot, and we have a checkmate. 4-move checkmate. All right, the queen is on the weak spot. It's protected by the bishop. That's a 4-move checkmate. Okay, remember there are lots of different ways to do the 4-move checkmate. It doesn't have to happen with those 4 moves, This is just probably the most common way of that happening. Okay, so there's the 4-move checkmate in action if black doesn't know anything about it. And if you do that to somebody, like I said before, shame on you. You've tricked them. You've got them in a checkmate in 4 moves, but feel free to do that a second or a third or a fourth time, because if they fall for it again and again and again, they're not learning. Okay, they're not learning. So what should black do to stop the 4-move checkmate? Okay, that's the key question, is when we get to this situation here, the queen's out there attacking the weak spot, the queen's about to do a checkmate, what should black do? Okay, because before that, the first 2 moves that black did were really good. All right, they protecting the middle of the board, they've got the bishop off the back row, and you've probably learned about the 3 golden rules where those are good moves, developing pieces, controlling the middle. It's just at this one point that the queen is threatening the weak spot. What should black do? Because black can stop it. If black couldn't stop it, chess would be a very boring game indeed, because whoever was white would always do the 4-move checkmate, they'd always win. Okay, but black can block it. So what should he do? Well, let's start off with blocking. Okay, so people often say, yeah, you could block the 4-move checkmate. Oh, okay, that's a good idea. The queen can't get through now, can it? Okay, the pawn's in the way. The queen can't get through, because if the queen tries, it's going to kind of be blocked by that pawn. It can't get through to the weak spot, so the queen's going to have to retreat. Well, not really. When you move that pawn forwards, it also opens up your king and your rook, and moving pawns forwards, pawns are your best defensive pieces. And when you move them forwards, if your opponent can sneak in behind them, it's all over. You're in big trouble. So this blocking move doesn't actually stop the 4-move checkmate. It just delays the 4-move checkmate. So the queen zooms across, takes out the pawn in front of the king. So the queen takes the pawn on e5 and now says check. Okay, well, that's all right. Black thinks it's not so bad. I can block the check. He can move his knight in the way to block the check. All right, that makes sense. Queen can now sneak in though, and you'll see why that pawn move was a bad move, because the queen sneaks in behind the pawn, takes out the rook, and this is trouble now. Once the queen's in behind that line of defense, behind those pawns, black's in big trouble. So the queen's got check again. Black can block it still. He can move his knight back in the way and block it. Okay, so he's got his knight to stop the queen from attacking the king. Again, it doesn't really help to stop the checkmate, just delay it. Queen just munches up the knight as well. So now the queen's taken out the pawn, it's taken out the rook, it's taken out the knight. Black's king's in check again. He blocks for the final time. The bishop retreats, trying to get all these pieces back in for defense. And now, even though it hasn't been 4 moves, white can do the 4-move checkmate. Okay, the queen takes the pawn on the weak spot. The bishop is protecting the queen, and there we have a 4-move checkmate. All right, it's a 4-move checkmate, even though it took longer than 4 moves. Remember, for a 4-move checkmate, the strategy, you need to make sure that the queen's on the weak spot and the queen is protected by something. If you can get your queen to the weak spot and your queen protected, it's going to be a 4-move checkmate. Right? Doesn't matter how many moves it takes. It can take 10 moves, it can take 20 moves, it can take 50 moves. 4-move checkmate is the name of the strategy, not how many moves it actually has to be. All right, let's go back to that critical point. Black tried to block the 4-move checkmate. All right, so we've got the queen and the bishop both aiming for the weak spot, and the pawn moving forwards to block it. Didn't work out. All right, so instead of blocking, what about we try protecting? So we can move the knight over onto the edge of the board, and the knight now protects the weak spot. Okay, so if the queen comes down and takes the pawn, then it's going to be taken back by the knight. But knights don't like the edge of the board, so generally that's a bad idea to put your knight on the edge of the board. They're half as powerful on the edge. So white moves his pawn forwards into the middle, so that's kind of a good move. 2 pawns in the middle. The pawn's threatening the bishop, the pawn's threatening the pawn. Black can easily take that, which he does. And now white easily takes out that knight on the edge of the board. He uses his bishop to take the knight. And now that the knight's gone, when black takes the knight back, it leaves black in a situation where his weak spot is not covered by anything. So the pawn takes back, and hopefully everybody can see here what the next move is going to be to do a 4-move checkmate. Again, it hasn't taken 4 moves, Okay, it's taken a lot more than 4 moves, but it's still a 4-move checkmate strategy because the queen's going to end up on the weak spot, protected by something. Okay, so the next move, queen takes pawn. The queen ends up on the weak spot. The bishop is protecting the queen, and we still have a 4-move checkmate. So we've tried blocking. We've tried to protect with a knight. Neither of those things worked. So what should black do? We're back to this critical situation again. Okay, the queen's come out. It's threatening the 4-move checkmate. Okay, what can black do to block it? Okay, well, we've got to use a bit of logic here. We've got to think it through. Okay, white's attacking you with his queen. Okay, and his bishop as well, but his queen, the most powerful piece, has come out and attacked. You started off trying to block or defend the queen with a pawn. Now, is it any surprise that it didn't work? A queen is way more powerful than a pawn. Then you've tried to defend with a knight. Well, defending with a knight against a queen, well, that's not going to work out well. What about defending with a queen? That makes kind of sense, doesn't it? Queen attacks, queen defends. So let's go back to this critical situation here. The queen's threatening the weak spot, is about to do a checkmate with a queen. Maybe, instead of blocking with a pawn or trying to protect with a knight, attacks with the queen, defend with the queen. What do you think about that? That's definitely the best move. So what you want to try and do, if someone attacks, kind of logical, attacks with a queen, threatening 4-move checkmate, use your queen for defense. Now, the queen's just gone one step forwards to protect. See, it's protecting the weak spot. It's protecting the pawn. And once you're protected, you'll find that you can start getting your pieces to attack the queen like you wanted to, well, like black wanted to do at the very start. So next move, black can just move his knight out, right, and attack the queen. Now the queen's threatened. The queen's going to have to retreat because white was attacking, but it's blocked, it's protected by the queen. Okay, so attack with the queen, defend with the queen, and then once you've got your defense in place, your knight, black's knight, can come out, attack the queen, and white's queen's going to have to retreat. Okay, so that is a 4-move checkmate strategy. Okay, remember it's only a strategy, doesn't have to happen in 4 moves. Okay. Queen on the weak spot has to be protected by something. Now, I'm showing you a picture here of one of my ex-students. Now, this was a few years ago. She was in grade 3 and her name is Chermaine. And Chermaine was, I think, a really brilliant chess player because I taught her the 4-move checkmate strategy and she realized that 4-move checkmate is a strategy. She really heard that and she really understood it's just a strategy. Okay, it's not 4 moves. So she invented her own way of doing a 4-move checkmate, okay? And it didn't happen in 4 moves. It just has to end up with the queen on the weak spot being protected by something. So we're going to now have a look and see if we can have a look at Chermaine's 4-move checkmate strategy, okay? All right, let's pop that up on the screen here. Just waiting for that to load up. Good. All right. We're going to have a look at Chermaine's 4-move checkmate. Remember, it's using the strategy, not the moves. So she started off in the normal way, advancing her pawn forward. She was white in this game. Okay, and this was in grade 3, and she was just playing against one of the other kids in grade 3. But she used this strategy quite a few times. I saw her using it in a number of games. Her opponent, as we expected, controlling the middle of the board, just copying. Bishop comes out. And at the moment, even though the bishop's threatening the weak spot, black has nothing to worry about. All right? Black doesn't have to be scared. Oh, no, he's going for a 4-move checkmate. There's no 4-move checkmate possible because the queen can't get there. All right? Unless the queen can somehow magically jump onto the weak spot. All right? This first move here of getting the bishop out is just what we call a bishop's opening. Okay? It's not a 4-move checkmate. So black has nothing to fear. So black's move of just developing his bishop is a really good move, much better than panicking and going, I'm going to get checkmated, I'm going to block it off. All right, here's where Chermaine's next move was a bit different. She didn't move her queen like a normal 4-move checkmate. You might say, he's going to move the queen out all the way to the edge of the board, and then the queen comes from the edge of the board, zooming in onto the weak spot, bang, there's checkmate. All right, yes, that's normally what you would do, but Chermaine doesn't do that. All right, she doesn't get her queen all the way out to the edge of the board. Instead, she just moved her queen one step. All right, and to her opponent, right, who was a reasonably intelligent player, who's probably played quite a lot of games before and probably knew the four-move checkmate, all right, and if she'd gone out for the four-move checkmate, he would have just blocked. To him, it looks like she is trying to defend her own weak spot. So he's thinking, Chermaine is just blocking the four-move checkmate. She's not actually trying to do the four-move checkmate. She's just blocking the four-move checkmate. Fantastic. Now, black plays what would be a normal, intelligent, smart move, starts developing some pieces off the back row, gets his knight off the back row and into the attack. Okay, this is a really good idea. We've got now black's two pieces off the back row attacking. Right, that's much more attacking than white's two pieces that are off the back row. This queen is in a kind of defensive spot. So black's really happy. Chermaine's next move was, in fact, to retreat. And again, he's probably thinking to himself, I can see what she's done. She's retreated her bishop back here. Well, that's protected by the pawn and protected by the pawn. She's obviously playing a really defensive game. She's got her queen defending the pawn, okay, on the weak spot. She's got her bishop being protected. So he's not expecting any sort of attack. Okay, a good move for black next move would be to develop the knight. So now black has 1, 2, 3 pieces developed off the back row. All right, that's really good. 3 pieces developed off the back row. And now here's where Chermaine's brilliant move came into play. Okay, she has now moved her queen to c4. And her queen is now threatening the bishop. Okay, you can see the queen's threatening to take the bishop. Now, of course, if your bishop's threatened, all right, if your bishop's threatened and you're black, you would think, I've got to move my bishop out of the way. Okay, bishop could, where can the bishop go? Bishop could just maybe retreat, which is what happened in the game. All right, who can think now what's Chermaine's move going to be? Because remember, I've told you at the start, she was going for a four-move checkmate, right? Strategy, four-move checkmate strategy, right? What didn't happen in 4 moves? She's already had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves, all right? So she can't do a four-move checkmate in 4 moves, but she still can do a four-move checkmate. To do a four-move checkmate, 2 things. You just need your queen on the weak spot, right? Here's black's weak spot, near the king, protected by nothing, just protected by the king, and you need your queen to be protected. We'll have a look at this. The queen can now drop down onto the weak spot. The queen is being protected by the bishop that's hiding behind. So here we have a 4-move checkmate. It didn't take 4 moves, but it's still a 4-move checkmate because at the end, the queen ended up on the weak spot and the queen was protected by the bishop. Black's king's in check. Can't take the queen, because if he tries to take the queen, the bishop's just waiting for him. Can't put anything in the way because it's too close, and he certainly can't move his king anywhere because the queen's got all those spots covered. All right? So the queen has got this great position now, totally trapping in black's king, and there we've got the 4-move checkmate. So remember, 4-move checkmate, strategy, not moves. Doesn't have to happen in 4 moves. 4-move checkmate can happen in 5, 10, 15, 20 moves, whatever you want. All right? What you guys should do, invent your own. See if you can come up with your own 4-move checkmate. All right? Maybe you'll do a 4-move checkmate that doesn't use the bishop like Chermaine did. As long as you can get your queen to the weak spot, it's just got to be protected by something. Maybe you'll be protecting it with a knight. All right? That would be a 4-move checkmate. The queen is protected by the knight. The queen's on the weak spot. There's a checkmate. Can you work out a way to get your queen to the weak spot protected by a knight? All right, well, maybe you can't get your knight to protect it. You want to try and get your queen to the weak spot protected by a rook. All right, that would be a 4-move checkmate. The queen's on the weak spot. It's protected by a rook. That's a 4-move checkmate. All right, that might take you 20 moves to do. All right, maybe you could even get a queen on the weak spot. All right, queen on the weak spot protected by, I don't know, a pawn. That would be a 4-move checkmate. As long as the queen's on the weak spot, protected by something, black's king is going to be checkmated. Okay, so good luck with your games. Feel free to stay on the line for a little while and I'll try and answer some questions. Um, I will be around for a little bit longer, but when you play your games, see if you can think about how to do the four move checkmate in your own way. And if somebody is attacking you, if they are aiming for the weak spot, they've got their queen about to get you in checkmate, well, you know how to defend it now. Attack with a queen, defend with a queen. Good luck, guys. Have fun in your games.